I heard the thud. My heart dropped immediately. My stepdaughter had kicked our dog. I couldn't believe what I saw. This was the breaking point. I'd tried so hard with her. For years, I'd poured my heart into being there for her. I wanted nothing more than for us to be a family. But she'd always seen me as an enemy. Maybe it was her mom's influence. Or maybe she thought I was trying to replace her mother. I don't know. But I loved her like my own. I included her in everything. I offered to paint her room. I wanted her to feel welcome, but the anger in her was growing. She had issues that needed addressing, issues I thought counseling might help. But her mother refused that idea completely. Things were getting worse at home and at school. Her destructive behavior was out of control. She'd broken our TV, smashed dishes, and even punched holes in walls. Every time her father told her no, something else broke. I lived in fear of saying the wrong thing. I was walking on eggshells. I have a toddler to protect, a 2-year-old who shouldn't grow up in chaos. Then it happened. The argument with her father escalated. She wanted to stay at her boyfriend's house, and he said no. I came downstairs, and that's when she kicked our dog. I was furious. Animal cruelty was a line I couldn't let her cross. I called her mother, told her to come and get her. I packed my stepdaughter's things, placed them by the door. She yelled, threatened me, but I stood my ground. I told her she wasn't welcome here until she could control her anger. Her mother arrived, furious, hurling insults, calling me names. I told them both to leave. Now her mom and aunt won't stop messaging me. Hateful, spiteful words. I've tried everything with her, loved her, defended her, but I'm at my limit. The stress is unbearable. I wish we could get her help. Someplace she could learn to manage her anger. But her mother won't allow it. I'm told I have no rights because I'm not her real mother. But was I wrong to protect my family? Was I wrong for drawing the line here? After they left, the house was eerily quiet. But my mind was anything but. The phone kept buzzing with messages, and each one was another stab at the guilt I already felt. I knew I had to talk to my husband. He needed to know everything that had happened, every word exchanged. So I waited for him, pacing the living room, my heart pounding in my chest. When he finally got home, I could see the weariness in his eyes. I told him everything, from the argument with his daughter to the confrontation with her mother. He listened silently, his face a mix of concern and exhaustion. I could tell he was torn. He loves his daughter, but he also sees the chaos her behavior is causing. I asked him, "What are we supposed to do now?" He sighed deeply, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know," he admitted. "But we can't keep going like this." We both knew that something had to change, and fast. We couldn't ignore the issue any longer. The next day, I decided to reach out to a counselor myself, just to get some advice on what steps we could take. I explained the situation, trying to keep the emotion out of my voice, but it was hard. The counselor was understanding, suggesting family therapy as a way to start. It was something we hadn't tried before, and maybe it could be a way forward. I brought up the idea to my husband, and he was open to it. But we both knew convincing his ex-wife would be another battle entirely. Still, we had to try. We couldn't just leave things as they were. In the meantime, I focused on our toddler, trying to keep the household as normal as possible. But every time I looked at the empty bedroom, I felt a pang of sadness. I missed my stepdaughter, despite everything. I hoped that maybe, just maybe, we could find a way to help her. We decided to call a family meeting, all of us, my husband, his ex-wife, and I. It was tense, to say the least. Voices were raised, accusations flew. But we stuck to our resolve. We needed to talk about therapy, about setting boundaries, about finding a way to coexist peacefully. Her mother was resistant at first, but when she saw how serious we were about protecting our family and helping her daughter, I think she started to understand. We all wanted the best for her. Even if we had different ideas of how to get there, it wasn't easy, and nothing was resolved in that one meeting, but it was a start. And sometimes a start is all you need to find a way forward. After the meeting, we were all emotionally drained, but there was a tiny glimmer of hope that hadn't been there before. We agreed to look into family therapy, and her mom reluctantly agreed to try one session. It felt like a victory, albeit a small one. Later that evening, as I sat with my husband on the couch, the weight of everything still hung over us, but there was also a sense of relief. We'd started a conversation, and that was more than we'd had the day before. We knew it wouldn't be easy. There were still so many obstacles to overcome. The next morning, I checked in with the counselor again, setting up a time for our first session. It felt proactive, like we were finally doing something tangible to address the chaos. My husband was supportive, and we agreed to take it one step at a time. Despite everything, I found myself hoping for a future where my stepdaughter could find peace within herself. I wanted her to feel at home in our family, not like an outsider or an enemy. I missed the potential for a relationship with her, and I hoped therapy could open that door. As we moved forward, I tried to focus on the positives, however small. Our toddler was happy and blissfully unaware of the turmoil, and our dog, thankfully, seemed to have recovered from the incident. Life was still moving, and so were we. I spent the next few days preparing for the therapy session, thinking about what I would say, how I would approach things. I wondered if her mother would keep her word, if my stepdaughter would be open to the idea. There were so many unknowns, but I had to believe we were doing the right thing. As the day of the session approached, I felt a mix of anxiety and hope. Would this be the turning point for us? Could we really find a way to help her, to help all of us? I didn't have all the answers, but I knew we had to try. In those quiet moments, as I sat alone with my thoughts, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was my last chance to make things right. I wanted nothing more than to see my family whole and happy, to know that we had done everything we could to support and love each other. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to face it, one step at a time. I just hoped that deep down, my stepdaughter would see that we were trying to help, that we cared more than words could express. Would she finally understand that all I wanted was for us to be a family? As the day of the session finally arrived, my nerves were off the charts. My husband and I got there early, sitting in the waiting room, surrounded by the quiet hum of the counselor's office. We didn't say much, just held hands, trying to offer each other silent support. This was it, the moment we'd been working towards. When my stepdaughter and her mother walked in, the tension was palpable. Her mother gave me a curt nod, while my stepdaughter avoided eye contact altogether. It stung, but I pushed it aside. Today was about more than hurt feelings. It was about finding a way forward. The counselor started the session by asking each of us to share our perspectives. My stepdaughter was reluctant at first, sitting with her arms crossed, her expression closed off. But as the session went on, she started to open up, haltingly at first, then with more emotion. Hearing her speak, I realized just how much pain and confusion she was holding on to. It broke my heart. We all had our turn to speak, and while there were tears and some heated words, there was also a sense of relief. We were finally talking, not just reacting. Her mother seemed to soften a bit, and I could see the worry in her eyes as she listened to her daughter. By the end of the session, the counselor had helped us lay out a plan, a series of steps we could take together. It wasn't a magic fix, but it was a start. We agreed to continue with therapy, and her mother promised to support the process, even if grudgingly. Leaving the office, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. My stepdaughter didn't say much, but as we walked to our cars, she gave me a small nod. It wasn't much, but it felt like a step towards something better. Back home, the atmosphere was still tense, but there was also a sense of cautious optimism. My husband and I talked late into the night, planning how we'd approach the next session, how we'd keep the lines of communication open. We were united in our desire to help her, to help all of us. Despite the uncertainty of what lay ahead, I felt hopeful. We had taken the first step, and that was more than enough for now. I knew we'd face setbacks, and there'd be challenges we couldn't yet imagine. But we were committed to this. We were committed to her. As I lay in bed that night, staring up at the ceiling, I couldn't help but wonder if this would be enough. Could we really help her find peace? Could we finally bridge the gap between us and become a family? I hoped with everything I had that we could, but deep down, I knew that the journey ahead was going to be unpredictable and possibly painful. The next few days were a mix of cautious optimism and underlying tension. We were all trying, but old habits die hard, and there were moments when frustration bubbled to the surface. My stepdaughter's behavior was still erratic. Sometimes she'd be open and receptive, other times she'd shut down completely, her walls going up faster than we could manage. It was hard not to take it personally, but I reminded myself that this was a process, and change wouldn't happen overnight. One afternoon, I found myself alone with her in the kitchen. It was an unexpected moment of quiet, just the two of us. I decided to take a chance and asked her how she was feeling about everything. At first, she shrugged it off, but then, to my surprise, she started to talk. It wasn't much, just a few sentences about how things felt different, and she wasn't sure how to handle it. But it was something, a crack in the armor she'd built around herself. I listened, really listened, trying not to say too much or push her further than she was willing to go. It was the most she'd voluntarily shared with me, and I cherished it, hoping it was a sign that maybe, just maybe, things were shifting. The next therapy session came around quickly. This time there was a bit less tension as we sat together, a small but significant improvement. The counselor guided us through exercises that encouraged us to understand each other's perspectives. It was hard work, emotionally draining, but necessary. Afterwards, my husband and I felt a renewed sense of determination. We knew the importance of consistency and patience, and we were committed to providing a stable, loving environment no matter how rocky things got. We talked about setting some ground rules that everyone could agree on, something to help create a sense of security and predictability. Her mother was still skeptical, but she seemed more willing to cooperate. That in itself was a minor victory. We exchanged contact information, promising to keep each other in the loop about any developments, trying to present a united front for the sake of our daughter. In the following weeks, there were setbacks and small victories. My stepdaughter had good days and bad, but the good days were starting to outnumber the bad ones. We celebrated those small wins, acknowledging any progress, no matter how modest. It was a long road, and some days felt impossibly hard. But each step forward, no matter how tiny, was a step towards healing. I found myself hoping more and more for a future where we could all live peacefully together, where the tension and resentment would be replaced by understanding and acceptance. As I sat alone one evening, reflecting on everything that had happened, I couldn't shake the feeling of uncertainty about what lay ahead. The question lingered, heavy and unresolved. Would my stepdaughter ever truly feel like she belonged?